Hi everybody, I'm Andrew Locke. Welcome to another episode of Gaffer in Gear. In today's episode, we're looking at push-up stands. So not wind-up stands, not C stands, but pretty much every other stand that I have. So this episode was shot about 6 months ago, and it's going to feature Manfrotto Avenger product and another brand called Hyxyj. Now, since I shot this episode, I've become friends with Kupo. So Kupo have also supplied me with a whole heap of equipment for review, including the stands that are here and some other stands that are on the way. So this stuff hasn't made it into this week's episode, but it will be in next week's episode. So watch this episode and watch next week's episode. You've got plenty of information on stands that are out there. Now, to give you some idea of the prices, this Kupo stuff is about half the price of Manfrotto or Avenger product, and the Hyxyj product is about half the price of Kupo. Anyway, let's get into the episode. All right, so let's go through some of the stands I've got here. So this is pretty much everything except for my wind-ups, and there are some other smaller stands I haven't got here. So like just smaller versions of this, the same thing but smaller, so not worth showing. So a lot of you have asked to see the Manfrotto Avenger product, because that's not apparently all that common in other parts of the world, so you want to have a look at that. So the bulk of this is Manfrotto Avenger. There are a few Chinese stands here, so this one's Chinese, and this one is also Chinese. So I'm going to start off with this unit first, this Chinese one. In all fairness, the only reason I bought these is at the time when I needed stands. I've got 20 of these. I bought 20 of them. At the time when I needed the stands, I was going through a bit of a difficult stage financially, and I couldn't afford to buy anything better, but I needed a whole stack of stands. This is made by, the company's called Hyxyj. I don't know how to pronounce that. It might be an acronym, I'm not sure. Chinese made. And I think this is an LS2 or an LS3, something like that. But here's the thing, if you're going to buy something like this, you've really got to look at yourself and ask yourself an honest question. Can you be bothered doing the maintenance? Okay, because the stainless steel on these isn't as stainless as the Avenger product, so you get a bit of rust on them. If they're in a hostile environment like close to a beach where there's salty air, you're going to need to clean them straight away after that job. Every 9 months you're going to need to clean these to get the rust off them, and if you don't, the stand's just going to pack up on you. So that's the thing you've really got to ask yourself. If you can't be bothered doing a serious maintenance regime on a stand like this, you might as well spend 3 to 4 times the amount of money and get the Avenger straight away. Okay, otherwise you're just throwing money down the toilet. Now, I've had these for probably about 10 years now. They'd have to be close to 10 years old. And I'll slowly be changing these out for Avenger, for Manfrotto or Avenger product. Now, these have probably got, honestly, another 5 years in them, but a stand like this is a 10 or a 15-year investment, whereas if you buy something like the Manfrotto or an Avenger stand or some other big name brand, that's a career investment. That's going to last you your whole career. You might have to replace a foot, or a lock-off might get damaged or something like that, but it's a serious long-term investment, whereas this is a short-term 10 or 15-year investment. They're not bad. They're definitely value for money, but if I had the money, I would have bought something better. There's little things like, if you do the lock-offs finger tight, they don't hold all that well. So if I push down on it, you'll see it's got play. Okay, I can push it down. And the other thing too is, it's not it's not quality stainless steel, so the chroming looks good, but the inside of the pipe below, for example, if that gets any moisture in it, so if this gets wet and you pack it up wet, the inside of this pipe's going to rust and put rust onto that pipe. So it is a fair bit of work has to go into cleaning them. So at least every 9 months I will clean these. And it'll take about half an hour to clean the stand. So half an hour times 20 stands. Yeah, sometimes I can't be bothered. Now, other things with them, at full extension, there's play in the pipe. See that? Now, you don't get that in the Avengers. So you'd want a little bit of overlap, okay? A bit of overlap, it's fine. If you've got someone that is not familiar with the stand, they'll put it up at full extension, and if you've got, a heavy light up the top, or something that's offset, like say a sky panel on a ball mount, suddenly you've got stands doing this, So if everybody's aware that of those issues, like you've got to have it a little bit tighter, you've got to have the overlap, they're perfectly fine. But if people are not, then you've got issues with them. And where these things are also weak is like the lazy legs, or the adjustable legs. We call them lazy legs in Australia, which is really odd because it's the hardest working leg. But the adjustable legs are usually a little bit weak. And one thing that's an issue with these is the feet. So these are on their second set of feet. But the problem with the feet is if you use them in mud, so if you put the stand in mud, and you don't realise this at the time, you put it in mud and then you pull it out, the mud sucks the feet off. So the suction, in the hole when you're pulling the stand out of the mud, sucks the feet off, and then you're on your next shoot the next day and you're like, where are the feet? So and the feet are not, it's just little things like the feet are not solid plastic, they're hollow plastic, so they wear out quick. So there's little things like that. If you're happy to do maintenance on them, then you're going to get 10, with some good maintenance, you'll get 15 years out of them. But if you can't be bothered doing the maintenance, you've really got to be honest with yourself and just spend more money up front. Okay, so let's have a look at these. So these are the Manfrotto Avenger. Now, these are actually so old, they're badged ARI. So back in early 2000, ARI used to sell Manfrotto Avenger stuff with about a 50% markup as ARI. So that gives you an idea of the age. So this would probably be, I'm guessing, about 17 years old. So they're in very good nick, very, very good nick. There's just a little bit of rust here beginning. There's a few scratch marks here, and that's from people on rentals who have forced it down instead of unlocking it, and they've scratched the pipe. But that's the only little bit of rust on there, and there's hardly anything there. On a stand that is at least 17 or 19 years old, this thing's holding up really well. And one thing I do like with these is I'm going to get it to full extension. So there's no overlapping in the pipe here. It's solid on that join. Now there's a bit of movement here on the floor because I'm on a 1/4 inch of foam on the floor in here, so there is some movement. But there's no movement in these pipes here. They're solid. It's a really good solid lock. Proper stainless steel. So if you get these wet, if they're packed away wet or they come back from a rentals and they've been packed away wet, when you extend it back out, there's no rust on this column here from the inside of the column down below. They're very nice, very solid. You've got it takes a junior pin. You've got a baby pin here, and it's a good length baby pin. So you can put a grip head on this, for example. Any light it will fit. So if you've got a light with a small stud, this is what gets a few people. If you've got a light with a small stud, some people don't like it sitting up here. Well, you can lower it down and lock it into place there, but really, really good. The lazy legs or adjustable legs are really solid on them. No problem at all with them. They've got a good length adjustment, and they're stable as. That's not going to budge. Look, I don't know what else to say about them. They're just really solid. I literally have not had a problem with them, and these have got to be at least 17 or 19 years old now. So the last thing I want to show on this stand is I'm just going to put it up, and I'm going to do it finger tight. The lock off's just finger tight. And look, I've put a bit of weight on with this whole COVID-19 lockdown. I'm currently 74 kilograms. So that's just finger tight. And it can take my body weight. Okay, so that's why I'm a gaffer and not a pole dancer. But as you can see, that's the difference in engineering between a better built, more expensive stand and a cheap stand. That's the secret right there. Now, if you're looking to build a reasonable arsenal of lighting stands, I would highly suggest having one of these. So a lot of people look at this and go, where am I ever going to use a combo head stand that is this small? And here's what surprises people. This extends to that big. All right, so check that out. All right, so that's a really handy size. So I've actually had like, you know, an M18 on this stand bouncing off a ceiling. Okay, I can get a HMI low enough and in a small space that I can bounce it off a ceiling. Fantastic. And I get the junior pin out. I can put a grip head on this, and where I tend to use these is if I've got my talent standing, if they're a bit older and you need to look after this section on the ladies, fill it in a bit, put a grip head on and have a reflector board here. It's a fantastic height for a reflector board. You pull out a little bit wider in the shot, no worries, we can drop it down, sir, it's out of shot now. Okay, you go in for your close-up, we can put that up higher. Yeah, fantastic little stands. And where I also use them is on the edge of rooftops. So you might have an industrial rooftop that's flat that you can get access to, and you want the HMI close to the edge. You know, bag this down, have it, you know, close to the edge, and I can have the HMI, you know, really close to the edge. If I need the beam getting, you know, over the edge of the wall, I can get it to about there. Whereas on a bigger stand, you know, with the footprint, the head's back here somewhere, and I can't get over that lip. Whereas this, you know, on a spale lets me get over the lip. You want to bag it down pretty good though. And here's the thing, something I found out I learnt this off a young gaffer. These little notches here, those things, that's for putting your shot bag over, getting the shot bag handle over to help weigh it down. So I didn't know that. That was pointed out to me by a very young gaffer. The only thing that's a little bit comical with this is the adjustable leg. So don't go, it's got an adjustable leg, but don't go selling your wedges just yet, because that's the full length of the adjustable leg, so it's a bit of a joke. But the stand's really fantastic. And that one, again, this one would have to be 17 to 19 years old, and look, no rust on it anywhere. All its lock-offs still work, there's no bent pipes. Just fantastic. Okay, so let's have a look at these ones. These are what they call their heavy duty, and clearly they're not, but that's the marketing name for them. So they're a combo head, so you can take a junior pin, it's got a baby pin. The baby pin is very stumpy, very short, so it doesn't fit many lights. It's pretty much just decorative. So that's sort of, I wouldn't buy it for that as a function. Where I use these is if I've got something like an LED panel that takes a junior pin, and I'm working indoors. I don't want a big heavy steel stand that's going to take up a big footprint. I use these. So I have 6 of these in my large van, but I have, in terms of the steel stands, that Chinese one I showed you earlier, I have 12 of those. So to give you an idea of the ratio. So, you know, if I need a smaller stand indoors, this is what I tend to go for. It's easier to maneuver around. The one thing is with these though, in terms of the feet, I would definitely put tennis balls on them if you're working inside, because the feet do tend to wear down here, and you do get this metal bit protruding after probably about a year of use. So you will scratch floors. So I would say, if you're working on someone's polished floorboards, I would definitely go tennis balls on those, or Pac-Men. So yeah, that's pretty much what I use them for. I would not feel confident, for example, putting an M18 on this and putting it at full extension, you know, with both columns up. It just feels a little bit too weak for me for that. I wouldn't be doing that with these. And the other thing with these is I wouldn't feel confident having the pipe at full extension like this. It doesn't have any play in it like the Chinese stand, but I'd feel a little bit more comfortable with a bit of overlap in there. So they're not as strong as the big heavy combo head stands, but they're sort of okay as a lightweight equivalent. Because the problem is, if you've got a lighting van or a 2-ton truck, you can't have every single light stand heavy because you're going to run out of weight. Now these also have an adjustable leg. Nothing amazing, but it does its job and it's sturdy. And in terms of pack down, that's what they pack down to. So they do take hardly any space in your vehicle. That's where they're pretty handy. But yeah, they're not going to replace a heavier stand. That is for certain. All right, so the next ones, I think these are called super alloys. The wheels are optional extras. Now these are pretty much my studio stands. So if I've got a studio job where I need a few more bits of equipment, I'll use these primarily for like a 12 by 12. So in studio, and that's pretty much all I use them for. Now the big weak point on these is the legs, okay? Where the screw goes through here, that's a weak point, and you can see that's a bit bent. Now that's actually bent from the weight of a 12 by 12 and the shop bags. So a little bit on the pathetic side. But what one of the younger gaffers here figured out, very smart young kid, he figured out, because he bought some brand new and he'd looked at mine and saw how bent they get at that point. He figured a broomstick would fit down the center of the pipe. So he unscrewed it here, unscrewed it there, fed a broomstick down, it fitted in perfectly, and then he just drilled a hole through the broomstick and put the screw back through. And his stands they're superb. This is really strong here, just with that broomstick dowel through. So yeah, clever young lad. I wish I was that smart. But yeah, that's pretty much what I use these for. Look, they go up a long way, because you've got what, 1, 2, 3 sections there. They do go up a long way, but yeah, it's aluminium. So there's a lot of flex in the pipe. I wouldn't use these outdoors. For me, they're a studio stand. They were very, very cheap. I can't remember what I paid for them, but they were very cheap. They were a no-brainer purchase for me, but they are literally a studio stand and that's it. One thing I don't like with them, and this is where some of the American light stands are better, is when you fold them up, you've got the wheels down there and you can't stand them up. You know, whereas some of the American stands, the wheels are actually up here and you can actually, you know, put these and rest them standing up. These you can't stand up, so that's a little bit irritating. And the next stand we'll look at, I think these were called master stands or 007s. So these were designed for 2000 watt floodlights. As you can see here, I'm struggling to get the legs down into place. All right, so the problem with these is the aluminium's too thin on them. So the reason this is out of shape is just from the lock off here. Just like literally doing the lock off up finger tight has bowed the pipe. So instead of the pipe being a circle, it's now an egg shape or an oval shape because it's been pushed against by the lock off. And again, that's just using them finger tight. I haven't been cranking them. So this stand's about 20 years old, but it's only really had about 10 years of use. Then I sort of gave up and chucked it to one side as a spare stand. So what tends to happen on these is the uprights, once they get bent a little bit, they jam. So usually the middle one. So yeah, they're a little bit painful to use. Yeah, that's well out of shape. So look, they just use too thin an alloy on them. Now, if you've already bought some of these, and here's my advice for you. Someone gave me this advice too late, and that is, don't lock them facing the same way all the time. Just turn them a little bit every time, and then lock it. Then on the next job, turn it and lock it. So what you're doing is, by doing that, the lock off is actually pushing it back into being a circle. You're pushing it back into shape. Whereas if you lock it over the same spot all the time, even just finger tight, it gets these out of shape. So yeah, I wouldn't buy these again. So I've bought these 3 times. First time, last time, and never again. Okay. But here's the interesting thing. This is the Chinese version of it. So this is the XYHYJ, and I think this is called the LS7. And I've had this working in my van. I've pulled it out of the van. This is 10 years old, so at least 10 years old, probably 11 years old. So it's had the same life on set as the Manfrotto, and no problem at all. Everything works great on it. So this is a case of where the Chinese stand is actually better than the European stand. So sometimes the Chinese stuff, they do a better version. So this is an example of a better version, but it doesn't happen all that often. But in this case, absolutely, they got it nailed.